Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Gridiron Review. Along with Bill Wagner and Pete Medhurst, great to have you with us as we kick off another fall of Gridiron action here in Anne Arundel County and, of course, around the colleges and the pros. And, Bill, things underway already. We've had 2 weeks of youth football, and the action off the field has been almost as, the story as everything on the field. We've had some really good games in a lot of weight classes. We still continue to juggle the battle of what is an American, what is a national. We just simply need to have Division I and Division II, period, and leave it alone. If your first team, you sign up your first team in Division I, somebody's got to go 3-6. And that's what we've got to stop. Everybody's trying to figure out, how can I not go 3-6 or 2-7? Like, every coach is worried that they're going to go 2-7. It's going to be a personal reflection on them as a person, and people are going to think, he's not John Harbaugh. He went 2-7 as the coach for Joe Youth football team.
Well, that's where it starts, and we're going to talk about some of the other issues, but it starts with coaches thinking they're Vince Lombardi, acting like winning at the youth level is the end-all, be-all, when I've said every year on this show, I say the same thing. Youth football is designed to, A, give kids an opportunity to play and enjoy themselves, B, to develop them so that they possibly have a chance to play at the high school level. That's all you're there for, is to train these kids, develop them so that they might have a chance to play at the high school level where it actually counts. And when you get coaches getting overly competitive, the parents follow suit, don't they, Pete?
No doubt about it. We had it happen this weekend at a specific location that right now will remain nameless, but we've got parents going on the field fighting. A kid ends up punching somebody, and what was great, the social media outflow from it was, he's a great kid. He just overreacted in the heat of the battle. You know what? There's got to be first of all, there's got to be ramifications, and there is for players in a situation like that. Usually, it's a one-game suspension, and they're on probation for the rest of the year, according to AAYFA and county guidelines. But the kids get caught up in it because they hear the parents going back and forth.
Right.
And this got so out of hand that one of the teams decided, well, you know what? We're just going to leave.
Right.
And this isn't a good environment for the kids right now. And the game was over. The kids didn't get to play the whole game. And it's all parents.
It defeats the whole purpose of youth football. It's just terrible. I mean, we have a situation where they can't even finish a youth football game because things have gotten so out of control. And, Reggie Leach is the Anne Arundel Youth Football Association commissioner, has done a tremendous job. Jeff Porter with Anne Arundel County Recreation and Parks, they shouldn't have to deal with this mess every Monday. They come into work Monday and find out about all these issues that, as you mentioned, are going to have to lead to suspensions.
Well, in the case of Jeff, I mean, he's at home on Saturday and his phone rings.
Yeah, it's blowing up.
And that shouldn't be the case. And it takes away from all the great action that we're seeing on the field out there on the gridiron right now. So, maybe we can make week 3 here a stress-free week and just let the kids play the game. High school football season got underway this week. Had to move some games around as well, with Annapolis and Meade playing a Tuesday game. But let's start right there. Rich Holzer did such a good job at Meade. He got the expectations of the program to a state championship type level. He leaves for Mount St. Joe, where he's doing terrific things there, and the program has taken a nosedive ever since then. Annapolis with just a huge win. Give Nick Goodmalloy a lot of credit. They served notice that they were on their way back last year, and certainly their opening serve in 2016 was impressive, 52-7 over Meade.
Well, let's first of all talk about Meade. It just shows what coaching can do. Rich Holzer is an outstanding coach. He's gone to Mount St. Joseph, and look who's all of a sudden one of the top programs in the Baltimore metro area, playing good counsel, giving them all they can handle.
Probably should have won the game.
Probably should have. Rich said a few mistakes held them back. But we've seen this at Meade before. When they've had a very sound coach, Jerry Hartman comes to mind, they have been an outstanding program. They've got the athletes in the school. When things are a little bit in disarray, and I'm going to give Albert Jones a chance. He's only in his second year. He does have a young squad. He mentioned that he has a lot of kids coming up from JV, so we'll give him a chance. But, Meade has the ability to be a good program, but there's been periods at that school when football's been down. And what happens is the great athletes in the school elect not to play football because they don't want to be associated with a losing program. So let's hope that the good athletes stick with Meade football. But Annapolis, they got some athletes. We saw this last year. I mean, you're talking about Cameron Hoke, Trey Gross. I mean, what he had
2 touchdowns on defensive side.
Right, fumble return and an interception return. Just loaded with athletes at Annapolis. And Nick Goodmalloy, talk about coaching, has done a tremendous job of bringing the Annapolis pride back. I liked his quote. He said that it's great to see the kids come out and produce after we've spent so much time in August preparing them, and to see that all of what we've done to get them ready come to fruition on the field. That's got to be great for a coach to see in the opener.
Some sweet-looking Under Armour uniforms, too, for Annapolis.
Looking sharp.
As well. Those were some nice duds they had out there in week one. Last year was a rare non-playoff year for Arundel. All they did in their opener was score 60 points. Do you think Chuck Markowitz got the attention of his team? And based on the amount of penalties that both teams had during the course of the game, the great thing for Chuck is he could go right back to practice this week and say, look, we scored 60 points, but look at all of the mistakes that we made. So he's got something to build even more toward week two right now for the Wildcats.
Yeah, well, Ryan Sedgwick is the new quarterback at Arundel. He went off. He had 372 yards passing. Christian Thornton seems to be the top target this year, 119 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. But Chuck said it in the post-game quote. He said, we are not a finished product. We got a lot to clean up. Always great for a coach to win big and be able to go back on Monday and say, we got a lot to work on. You know, Glen Burnie put up 35 points. The head coach, Eric Woodson, was out. So he had a death in the family, and that may have hindered Glen Burnie in that game as he was not at practice most of the week. Glen Burnie, if they're putting up 35 points, I think they're to be reckoned with.
Steve Erxleben makes his debut at Southern.
What are they doing at Southern? Passing the ball, Pete Medhurst? Did you ever pass the ball when you were a quarterback at Southern High?
1 for 1, a pass to Sean Makel for 11 yards and a 53-0 victory over Gwynn Park in 1986.
And that was under Buck Gardner, who ran the wing tee and did not stray from it, did not throw the ball much. But Steve Erxleben wants to toss the ball around, doesn't he, Pete?
They did in their opener, beating Rising Sun. And, by all accounts, Rising Sun's not a real formidable team. But I think what's happening here, Russ Myers worked with John Mabry, the previous AD, really strongly with Clayton Culp and the folks at the county to get some relief in the schedule, so they don't have to play as many of the 4A teams. I believe it's in 17 where they pick up 4 games against non-county teams that they can schedule against teams maybe more their size or more the competitive level. And I think that's going to eventually help them because the region they're in is just a region of death with Douglas and Gwynn Park and people like that. So they just have no chance. Patuxent has also been in that region in the past as well, another good team from the SMAC. So they've got to have a chance to compete and playing constantly against the Broadnecks. And even though they've beaten those teams before, on occasion. I mean, Russ Myers took them to the state semifinals in 2006. But to be able to do that every year when you basically right now, they don't have a feeder program. Their feeder program is 113 and under team that's playing C-level varsity ball right now. Has a couple kids that look like they might be able to contribute, but the rest of them have a long way to go if they're going to compete at the high school level. A lot of their kids are matriculated down to Calvert County to play youth football, but they're all split up and broken up amongst 3 different organizations. So to see Steve and, of course, my guy, Mitch Suplee, the former Maryland Terrapin, South River Seahawk, coaching at Southern, there's something wacky about that.
But those guys Steve Erxleben's a former South River High coach.
And they know what they're doing.
They do.
And
they're good coaches.
They're going to do a terrific job. And I'm really glad to see Russ Myers stay not only with the program, but he's the head coach for the JV and the assistant athletic director now at Southern. So, and they won their game over the weekend as well. So to see Southern jump out 46-7 like that, hey, the Northrop kids, one's at, I think, West Virginia Wesleyan now, and the next one seems to be ready to put up some numbers as well.
Brody Northrop, 225 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Are those school records, Pete?
No, they're not. I'm sure guys like Geno Spriggs and Sean Salisbury, Joey McCaffrey, David Cassard, I'm sure those guys put up
some
big
decent numbers in the day.
Back in the day, throwing 26 throwback and all those great patterns that Buck Gardner had in the playbook. But, hey, Zach Newland, ran for 139 yards, 2 scores. Dylan Heil ran for another touchdown to 72 yards. So the great balance that they struck, I think, is the thing to me, which is going to make them, I think, a much more formidable team going forward. So congratulations to Steve Erxleben and his staff on their season-opening win there. Chesapeake gets a win against Lansdowne by a score of 16-12. Sterling Williams with 111 yards on 20 carries. And here's the challenge now, for Rob's team at Chesapeake. You got to the playoffs last year. You got
Right.
a little taste.
They want to take the next step.
You know, what's the next part of the entree? Can we get past the salad portion now? Can we get to the entree in terms of the playoffs? But it's great to see now winning expectations at Chesapeake now after such a big year.
Yep. When you have a consistent coach like Rob Elliott, who's been there now for quite some time and has really built a program, and
literally from the ground up, from the youth league program on up.
Yep. And there is an expectation to win. So. Now the question is, can they knock off the Broadnecks and the Old Mills and the Arundels and take that next step? And Broadneck, speaking of which, Emmett Davis, we talked about all last year, and he's went to the Naval Academy to play football. I presume he's at the prep school.
At the prep school, yep.
He's got a younger brother, Shane Davis. I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah.
He's now the quarterback at Broadneck.
There's 3 of them.
Okay. Shane
So
Davis,
there's one behind him.
Shane Davis, 11 for 18 passing for 135 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Pete, already Coach Rob Harris is touting Chris Watts as the best player in Anne Arundel County.
Might be.
Compared him to Ryan Callahan, who's a two-time Rhodes Trophy winner.
The thing about Chris Watts is, and it's aptly put that his name is Watts, because he brings electricity when he's on the field. Every time he touches the football, Bill, he has the potential for an explosive play. That's what makes him so dangerous, and I think that's why Rob, I think, correctly touts him in that regard, because every time he touches the football, he has the ability individually to change a game every time he touches the ball.
Right. Yep. Chris Watts is legit, and we'll talk as we go along this season about potential Player of the Year, Rhodes Trophy candidates.
It is only week 1.
There's other players out there other than Chris Watts, one of whom, Evan Falkman at Archbishop Spalding. He was the Capital Gazette Player of the Year last year. He did not win the Rhodes Trophy. That went to Alihi Niamatololo, who will be at Boise State after he completes his Mormon mission. But Falkman off with a good start. Spalding really laid it on St. Mary's, Pete.
I think Spalding right now, and I told you this before we started taping, Kyle Schmidt and company, they're looking to take their program to the ultimate level in the A Conference. And if they're getting the recruits, they've had, look at it. Zach Abey now is at the Naval Academy.
Number 2 quarterback.
He's the number 2 quarterback there. Now you got an athlete like, Falkman right behind him, who is potentially on the verge of doing, similar things. When you can prove as a program that you can send guys to the next level, you're going to continue to get better recruits. And that's what Kyle Schmidt has done here through the years at Spalding, gradually building them back up the A Conference ladder. And, with Biff Poggi leaving Gilman now, and, it probably opens the door for a lot of these clubs now within the A Conference.
Everybody move up in the
everybody
hierarchy.
thinks, hey, we can win this thing now. Things might be a little bit more even keel. So we'll see what happens. But you're right. They beat them 52-0. Right. But you know what, though? It's A versus B.
Right.
And that's
well,
probably
I'm asking myself, it's a traditional rivalry because they're 2 of the few private schools in Anne Arundel County, but not sure St. Mary's and Spalding can be playing anymore. When
it's not on
really
even terms.
Two
programs aren't on even terms.
They are not. It's not apples and apples.
By the way, that Broadneck game was a 36-12 win over South River, avenging that loss to the Seahawks from last year. Old Mill knocks off Severna Park, gets their opener underway, 49-21, no problem there. We had a chance to see Old Mill's Noah Fitzgerald play for Fordham this past weekend.
Had a sack.
And great to see him contributing on the college level. And again, when you had those great programs, Jake Hawk was playing for Navy on Saturday from Meade. So it's great to see the local youngsters. Jared Ryan out of Severn got a lot of snaps for the Mids on defense. So it's great to see local youngsters stepping up to that next level, not only being on a roster, but contributing right away in several cases, because those guys are all sophomores competing for the teams that they're playing for there. St. John's Catholic knocked off AACS by a score of 16-12. Liberty gets by Severn by a score of 30-6. And how about Northeast getting off on the good foot? They've developed a nice little early season game with Crossland, and that's been a way for them to get off to a good start the last couple of seasons as the Eagles pick up a season-opening victory.
Very nice win, and they got a new coach down in Northeast as well. Davon Carroll had the big game, 92 yards rushing. He also caught a pass for 85 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns. So it was excellent to see Northeast get off to a nice start. So North County wasn't quite able to get a win against Lansdowne. I believe they lost.
Northwestern. PG County, 18-14.
Right. They lost by 5
But
points.
again, competitive game to get the season going for the Knights in that one. When we come back, Bill and I will talk colleges. Great starts for Maryland and Navy in terms of the results. A big injury for the Mids still to come as well. Skins and Ravens get their seasons underway coming up this week. We'll talk about those 2 teams as well. Back with more in a moment on the Gridiron Review. Welcome back. Time to talk colleges now. University of Maryland debuting DJ Durkin this week. And, Bill, we've had a chance to have some interaction with Coach Durkin over the past few months, not only at the Annapolis Touchdown Club, but obviously between that time and now. Really enthusiastic coach, a guy with great energy. His team played with it on Saturday against an outmanned Howard team, but this was by no means a struggle. Games like this have been a struggle for Maryland in the past. Saturday was not against the Bison.
Well, I like DJ Durkin. I really think highly of him. Got a chance to really spend some time with him at the Touchdown Club of Annapolis event. Went to their recruiting announcement when they announced their recruiting class and got to talk to him a little bit more. A guy who's got good pedigree. He coached with Urban Meyer, coached with Jim Harbaugh. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he's going to be successful. Don't want to read too much into this game. Howard might be one of the worst teams in all of college football.
Well, I mean,
they
again,
won one game last year.
It's a program that lacks resources, and the only reason
Right.
they're playing the game is so they can get a check.
Money.
It's just a check. That's all they're doing. They're playing for the check. But good to see them get off to a start. And you know, obviously Perry Hills is the man right now at the quarterback spot until he plays his way out of the position. But they got a chance to play a lot of guys in the game. And, you know, let's see what happens this week. A little bit more of representative of a team
Right. Going on the road.
They're going to face on the road, Florida International and Maryland, ironically, a 10.5-point favorite in that game. But I think the Virginia Tech transfer, Trey Edmonds, showed you on Saturday. I think he's going to be a guy that they can depend on carrying the football, because it's going to come a time where you're not going to be playing 6-7 different running backs during the course of the game. I think he's going to separate himself a little bit as the season goes along and be a competent ball carrier for them. The question is, will the quarterback be able to make plays against the better teams? That's still the one thing that they're going to have to answer going forward here as the season goes along.
Right. Well, and they do have some depth at running back. They played two freshmen with local ties. Lorenzo Harrison out of DeMatha, Jake Funk, who was a record-setting runner at Damascus, put all sorts of crazy numbers. And Wes Brown is suspended.
Right.
He was expected to be the starter. So it suddenly looks like they have some backfield depth. And keep this name in mind, Terrell Pingrome, they call him Piggy. He's a freshman. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year. I want to say it was in Alabama.
Right.
And they have really liked what they've seen out of him in the preseason. He's not quite ready to run the offense, but he's a guy that's electric and can do some things. You may see some special packages for him to come in and maybe run Wildcat or do some option type of stuff. And we are mentioning local players who are at the collegiate level. Adam Green out of Broadneck High is the starting place kicker for the Terrapins.
Meanwhile, at Navy, they were on the verge of having two runners over 100 yards in the first half. If you take the sack yardage out, Tago Smith was over 100 yards in terms of yards gained with he and Chris High. But, of course, Wags, the terrible injury toward the end of the second quarter, a torn ACL. The starting quarterback, very explosive, out for the rest of the year. The Mids become a different club now in terms of the explosiveness at that position. But as we've seen from Ivan Jasper in the past, they still find a way to win. They still find a way to get execution out of that position, and we'll see how they do against a very good defensive team in UConn this week.
Well, first of all, you and I have both gotten to know Tago Smith over the years, and heartaches for him because he waited 3 years behind the record-setting Keenan Reynolds. This was his chance to start, his chance to shine. People are going to see this year what a good quarterback Tago Smith is in his own right, and I think he was ready to have a huge season, and it's over like that. I'm hoping, if Tago wants to do it, I'm hoping that they can get a medical hardship year for him, and maybe he comes back as a fifth-year senior and gets that opportunity that he's going to miss this year. And now Will Worth is the quarterback. He's a different type of quarterback. He's a little bit bigger, stronger. He's more of an inside runner. Ivan Jasper will tailor the offense to suit his strengths. He does throw the ball pretty well. We saw that on a nice little wheel route, hit Tony Ogoli for a long touchdown. Ivan describes him a lot, likens him to Aaron Polanco, and he led Navy to 10 wins and a victory in the Emerald Bowl. So, as you mentioned, Pete, Ivan has proven that he can get it done with a wide range of quarterbacks. They've all been different in their own right, different skill sets, and he makes sure they get the job done, because in the end, it's about the program, it's about the offense, and there's a lot of other parts. Quarterback just has to manage things.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Of course, Chris High, what a great job he did at the fullback spot. And they've said they thought they were going to get big things from him. 10 carries, 176 yards, all in the first half from the Navy fullback. Really impressive. And if you've got that kind of be-back potential there, that makes your quarterback's life a lot easier. And give a credit to the young, inexperienced offensive line. Yeah, they may lack experience, but they sure as heck didn't lack talent. On Saturday, they were opening up, truck-sized holes for Chris High to run through.
He used that term. He said crater. It was like a crater. It was funny. I was talking to Mike Judge, the fullbacks coach, last week, and he said, You watch, if Chris High gets out in the open, he can take it to the house, and sure enough, he broke a run, and nobody was catching him from behind. He shows some nice speed for a guy, 215, 220, whatever he is. So, Sean White was supposed to be a starting fullback for Navy. He got injured in preseason, missed a couple weeks, and all of a sudden he finds himself third on the depth chart, struggling to get a few reps on game day. So there's a lot of depth there.
I know Maryland out of town this week. If you want to go see a good game, 3:30 Saturday in Annapolis, Navy and UConn's a big American Athletic Conference clash. UConn 1-0 coming into this game as well. And it should be a good one in Annapolis. It's going to be a nice sunny day, so weather should not be an issue there. Weather shouldn't be an issue for the Redskins on Monday night. Might be slightly for the Ravens on Sunday, but that looks pretty good as well. Bill and I will talk about those two teams when we return on the Gridiron Review. Welcome back. Time to check in on the guys that play for pay. And the Ravens, I think there's so many question marks with this team. It's hard to imagine what to expect from this club. Flacco back, obviously a quarterback. They played some games with Justin Forsett. But and I said this a little bit last year, but everybody was freaking out on social media when they cut Justin Forsett the other day. The guy's been a journeyman his entire career. It's not as if he's been Jim Brown, Adrian Peterson, or anything like that during his career, but he's a good story. He had a nice year for Baltimore. And it would appear with a healthy offensive line, he's capable of giving them some talent in the backfield, especially with Kenneth Dixon, the youngster out of Louisiana Tech, hurt for the first few weeks of the season. Keep your eyes on him. But, Bill, having Flacco back is, of course, the key for the Ravens. If Steve Smith is ready to go upon first calling, they finally have some weapons around Joe Flacco where it looks like we might get to see Joe display the full arsenal finally at that quarterback position.
Well, first of all, they're saying that Joe is fully recovered from the knee injury he suffered last year that required season-ending surgery. Has looked good in training camp. And you mentioned it. It's all about the weapons that they're surrounding him with. Very ashamed to see Benjamin Watson go down as lost for the season. That's a tight end they picked up in free agency and had it coming off a great year last year with the New Orleans Saints. But they have other tight ends. They supposedly.
Of course, half of them are suspended right now. But.
Yeah. Well, some of them are out for, first couple games. Max Williams, I think. Dennis Pitta is supposedly back, amazingly, after two broken hips.
But clearly hasn't been drinking his milk because he's just really fragile and his bones are brittle.
Right.
Drink your milk, kids.
Rashad Perriman, there's a name. You got Steve Smith is a kind of a possession-type receiver at this point in his career. You know what you got in him. Is Rashad Perriman going to give you that downfield threat that they've been lacking ever since Torrey Smith went to San Francisco 49ers? Kamar Aiken had a great year last year, and you think he's another solid guy, but he's not a burner. You need that guy that can stretch the field. That's why they drafted Rashad Perriman. He actually made his long-awaited debut in the preseason, caught a couple passes right off the bat. So it would be interesting to see what he can do for the Ravens.
He's a long strider. If he stays healthy, he's fine. Was a game breaker at Central Florida. So he's got the ability. For those of you that may not have watched him in college, you should open your eyes on Saturday. You might watch some really good talent on Saturdays, and then you'll know where they were when they come into the NFL. I think, to me, the biggest question about the Ravens is what are they going to be defensively?
Right.
I mean, they're in a tough division. I mean, you're in a division with two other teams that have AFC championship aspirations. You're lucky you got two walkovers with the Browns in your division, but the Steelers and Bengals are no picnics. Nope. Absolutely no picnics anymore.
Well, and the Ravens have not ever been able to replace the real thumper that Ray Lewis was. They're still looking for a linebacker who can, bring the wood. You're going to hope that Terrell Suggs can come back and be productive and be the sack specialist that he had been in the past. But, that's a wild card coming off of a torn Achilles. And, he was very limited in preseason. They didn't want to, push him too hard. But you're absolutely right, Pete. And they picked up Eric Weddle on the back end in free agency to try to bring some, safety help. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. We should mention in Ravens news, Keenan Reynolds, 6th-round draft choice of the Ravens, was waived, but then was brought back onto the practice squad. The Ravens, Coach Harbaugh, Ozzie Newsome, they like Keenan. They like what he can bring. They like his potential. He just needs a little work. He was drafted to be a...
Yeah, I mean, he's been playing quarterback his whole life.
Right. He was drafted to be a return man, and he wasn't quite there yet. That's why they've got Devin Hester they brought in to serve as a stopgap this year. Do not be surprised if Keenan Reynolds works his tail off this season on the practice squad and next year is suddenly a very competent returner and slot receiver.
Yeah, and keep in mind, don't get all happy, Ravens fans. This isn't the Devin Hester of 2010.
No.
He only played 5 games last year, but you never know. You might strike lightning in a bottle. Meanwhile, the Redskins, all points right now seem to be top of the NFC East. The Eagles traded their quarterback, Sam Bradford, to go with the rookie Carson Wentz. Tony Romo's in the emergency room as always. The Giants have a new coach who can't wear a suit that fits, so we'll see what happens here with Kirk Cousins. It's Kirk with a K, everybody, not Kurt with a T. Kirk with a K, like Captain Kirk of Star Trek. Last year, he was astronomical down the stretch for the Redskins. The question is, does he have an encore with a very good returning cast, especially just a stable of receivers where they're 6 deep with guys that could play on most teams in the NFL?
All right, well, first of all, did I hear correctly that Kirk Cousins' game day paycheck is the highest in the NFL? Apparently, I just heard that on ESPN.
Well, because he signed the tag, so he's at
Franchise
$19 million for 1 year. So probably the way it works out per game is, yeah, he's probably,
Right. But, you know,
he's probably able to buy a lot of ice cream after the game. He likes that.
Deshaun Jackson,
He likes to go to Shake Shack.
Jordan Reed. I mean, they've got some outstanding receivers. The question, who's the running back? Matt Jones has been injured.
Going to start probably on Saturday. And if not,
they've had some other guys show some
not,
things in the preseason.
you know, hey, Rob Kelly, who we saw last year in the
Tulane.
Navy-Tulane game, has really proven himself. I mean, he was the leading rusher for them back in 2011 at Tulane, had some academically and eligibility issues that kept him off the field for 2 years, finally got back on the field last year, and has shown that ability again in preseason for the Redskins. So you don't have to be a great back for the Redskins because they're going to throw the football 60% of the time. It's going to be a 60-40 mix pass to run with the Redskins now. Jay Gruden loves to throw the football, and he's going to do that, I think, with Kirk Cousins and all those weapons right now for Washington. And they went out in the offseason, and they really, I mean, bringing in Josh Norman helped solidify the back end. Their depth at linebacker right now is fantastic, and Ziggy Hood has come in and solidified things at one of the defensive end spots that was open this year opposite the youngster Preston Smith, who was great down the stretch last season. So, you know, this is a Redskins team where the door is open for them to win the NFC East again. The question is, for Kirk Cousins, if he wants to get paid again next year, he needs to bring the same ability he saw last year, or don't be surprised if they let him walk in the offseason.
I know. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, what a difference a year makes. Redskins are opening on Monday night on the national spotlight of Monday Night Football. Nobody would have put them in that slot the starting of last year, so things have really changed.
Here's the question.
For the Skins.
Will Ravens fans root for the Redskins on opening night because they're playing the Steelers?
I think you have to.
What do you do if you're a Ravens fan?
Yeah.
Because the Redskins don't care about the Ravens, but for whatever reason, Ravens fans have it up under their skin about the Redskins. They can't wait to let Redskins fans know when the Redskins lose. So, you know, after all, my father-in-law is a Ravens fan, and he always lets me know about that when the Ravens win and the Redskins lose. Of course, last year, the Redskins won more than the Ravens.
That's
I
right.
was able to give it back. Well, that's week 1 in the books. We'll be back again next week talking about all the great high school action. Hopefully, we'll have a clean Youth League Saturday slate coming up this week. Please, people, just behave yourselves and let the kids play. It's really simple. And we'll review the Navy and Maryland games as well as week 1 in the National Football League. For Bill Wagner, I'm Pete Medhurst. We'll see you next week on the Gridiron Review.